The human imagination is a slave to experience, a thrall to sight, smell, sound, taste, and touch. Creation is a ruse, a discordant combination of everything that came before. Even the greatest inventions had to start somewhere. Every painting has an inspiration, a muse. True to our species' form, we steal, bastardize, and recreate in our own image. On August 19th, 2011, we asked, what can humanity create when robbed of its ability to take from others? Sight was the easiest. Two wires behind the corneas, heated white hot and pressed against the optical nerve. We did not wish to maim the child, only its first sense. It cried, its harsh screams driving white hotness of their own into the spots behind my eyes. A migraine came and went. The baby's crying came and went. It would be all right. This was only a circumcision. He would never remember. Would he? A similar procedure was performed for the ears and nose. There was the ever-present danger of the child's eardrums growing back, so we did the scans, guided another wire into the primary auditory cortex. He would never hear voices or music. We did the same with his piriform. The last thing the child would smell was his own burning flesh, and the last thing he would taste was the faint hint of copper as we severed both connections at once. The hardest was his sense of touch. Perhaps we should have done this first, so he would not feel pain. The child was beginning to understand, if only at a subconscious level. He wailed wordless obscenities at the surgeon as his brain was poked and prodded. The base of the somatosensory system was found, severed. The subject ceased its wailing. Perhaps it knew there was no point, or perhaps it could no longer feel its own vocal cords vibrating against the thin wall of its young throat. The empty shell of a man that was once Dr. Crane stepped back, hands shaking. He'd held on through the procedure. No longer. The man did not look like a surgeon. It's done, he said. He walked out of the room. I doubted he would ever recover from his actions today. Not me. I don't participate. Only record. 4 days later, Dr. Crane shot himself in the head. Hazmat came through to clean the scraps of Dr. Crane off the walls. They would not let us in. I didn't understand why not. Why would anyone want to see him that way, regardless? All the same, Dr. Crane had done his job. All that was left was to wait. The mind of a newborn is remarkably resilient. Under the harsh glare of innumerable MRIs, his brain began to reform, in a worthless attempt to regain some semblance of understanding, to undo the circumcision. We had pills for that, and the shifting stopped. We named him Toad. We watched him, scanned him, prodded him with needles. We fed Toad through an IV tube that he had no interest in interacting with. Why would he? He wouldn't know it was there. I was admittedly disappointed in the uneventfulness of those first 5 years. If I could have quit, I would have, not out of ambivalence, but out of boredom. I locked myself in my room in the evenings, reading the same books, eating the same protein packs for 5 years. I think I might have followed Crane into the abyss after much longer of this. I was saved by Toad. 2 days after his 5th birthday, he crawled. It was nothing short of spectacular. He didn't really go anywhere, just milled about his 10 by 10 glass box for a while. He bumped into walls, and something in his primal brain told him to turn around. We attached a few nodes to him and watched this happen. Little parts of his brain lit up like a pinball machine whenever he hit one. Something was telling him to turn around and stop hitting the wall. Survival instincts, perhaps? Year 7. Today, he walks. Other than that, he still does the same. Mills about his glass prison, but somehow holds himself up on atrophied legs. I imagine it would hurt if it could. Dr. Wilde is convinced that Toad stares at her when she examines him. I think she's going crazy. However, I think he stares at me too. I try not to think anything of it. It is 3 days after Toad first took his steps. His head mills about the room, fixating for tender moments on objects that are not there. I wonder what he sees. Our latest MRI suggests brain activity beyond what we could expect from a 7-year-old, even a healthy one, which Toad is not. Today, he growled. It was soft, almost pleasant. He hasn't used his vocal cords since he was a newborn. I'm surprised they even work. Strangely enough, I'm happy for him. What I am less happy about is the crack on the southern wall of Toad's room. Maintenance is fixing it, but it could contaminate our research. He speaks. Not words, but he speaks. It's a simple language composed mostly of grunts, moans, and the occasional attempt at a M sound. His MRIs show activity unlike anything we've ever seen. Without his senses getting in the way, there is no telling what a boy like him, could create. An MRI came back today. The occipital lobe glows brighter white with each passing day. There's no telling what it means, but the grunts have turned into growls and squeaks in the back of his throat. He's trying to speak. We will not be able to run any more scans. Dr. Wilde followed Dr. Crane's path and painted the walls with her brains. Hazmat did not come. Perhaps they've forgotten about us. This experiment should be ended. I would end it myself, were it up to me. The facility stinks of rot. Maintenance has not come to fix the glass, and the crack has only gotten larger since the day it was recorded. Toad sits on the wall closest to Dr. Wilde's room, where her decaying, bloated form sits idly and waits for someone to come rescue her. He sniffs the air and salivates. I do not know why. He can't smell. Today, Toad spoke to me. He looked right at me. He smiled and he spoke to me. Robert, you don't meddle with what you don't understand. In near shambles, I asked him what he meant. And for fuck's sake, he responded. When your kind has nothing to form itself around, it becomes an empty vessel. And I thank you for that. He turned and sat down in the corner where Wilde's room is closest. He sniffs the air as globules of thick saliva drip unfettered from his unfeeling tongue. I've decided for my sake, for our company's sake, that this experiment needs to end. I'm going to kill Toad and put a stop to this once and for all. We venture into territory that we don't understand. At the beginning of this journal, I asked the reader, what can humanity create when robbed of its ability to take from others? The answer is nothing. It only gets taken over by something more qualified. I hope to bring you good news soon, but I have none now. For the glass that was scratched is now broken. I cannot find him. Sister made a mistake. I'm afraid it might have killed her. Master has been good to you, so why stir the pot? Mother said to us. This was years ago. Mother's been dead a long time, but I remember too vividly the saccharine image of her smiling, waving a sauce-covered spoon in my direction, warning me and my sister to never stir the pot. Mother feared Master, as do I. Sister does not, never has, and likely never will. She is stubborn. She is hot-headed and she's beautiful. She always smells of lavender. Master likes the smell of lavender, and he likes her despite her stubbornness and hot-headedness. The grounds of Master's home sit under a misty red and gray sky. We don't run. There's nowhere to go. It's safe here. When we aren't caring for Master, we tour the grounds. They're seemingly endless. Master was some sort of entrepreneur in a past life. Now he only sits in his room and waits for Sister to bring him food, which he accepts with a grateful grunt. We don't stay with him while he eats. We're not allowed to. When chores are done, we play. There's a volleyball net and a basketball court, a game room with billiards and an old air hockey table. Half of the court doesn't work, so we switch off. We've asked Master to fix it for us, but he only grunts. We don't know how to fix it, and there's no one left to try. In the center of Master's land, there's a hedge maze. We've asked about it once. The innocent, childlike question was met with uncharacteristic rage from Mother. Under no circumstances were we ever to enter the maze. Those were Master's 2 rules. We don't sit with him while he eats, and we don't enter the maze. As if we could. Sister tried many times, despite my protests. There's no entrance. You can walk the 2 miles around the perimeter and never find a way in. You can do this as many times as you like. Master used to say it would open when ready. Who knows what that means? Sister's gone missing. The earth outside the gates is a sickly black abyss, and they're welded shut, so there's little chance she left that way. Yesterday, she talked of the maze again. In the middle of another sleepless night, I heard the wind rustling against leaves. In a world where there are neither, maybe the maze was ready for her. I'd like to go look, but not until my chores are done. After dusting the house and scrubbing the toilets on the first floor, I asked Master what he wanted to eat. In muffled tones, he replied that he wasn't hungry. My blood chilled at the words. Master was always hungry, but I left without saying anything. The night passed. The maze produced a violent, horrific noise I could only describe as grinding. I should capitalize it now. It speaks, so it deserves a name. I wonder what it was grinding at, or grinding up. Morning came, as did chores. Master was again full, so I approached the hedge walls. The grinding ebbed and waned, near silent at times and deafening at others. I wonder what was going on in there. The maze knew this, so it invited me. I choked on my own bile and ran. It continued to grind provokingly. As I laid in bed, it ground. As I slept, it ground. It ground into my nightmares. When I woke in the morning, it no longer made that dreadful sound. It only opened when I came out. I stared down a hallway of vibrant green. The sunlight bouncing off the somehow vital leaves felt different somehow. Cleaner. Maybe it was just me. I told myself I shouldn't, but the maze beckoned me in with unspecified promises. Before I had the chance to argue, the walls closed in on me and I was trapped. It knew what I wanted. I looked up at the walls towering over me. They were not this tall when I entered. A mile above me, fragments of blood-red sky peeked through now yellow-green flora. In front of me, the quickly darkening hallway stretched to unknown lengths. I walked for a long time, too long for logic. The hallway did not let up. The direction didn't change. The maze had become a prison. I grew hungry and tired. Then the walking became too much and I passed out. I found myself awake in the middle of the night, dim red towering above me. I dusted myself off and continued. My stomach fought me every step of the way, before giving up and fading to the background. I nearly lost what little contents it had when I finally reached a corner, and a familiar scent coated the inside of my nostrils. Lavender. Sister's perfume, the one that Master loved so much. And something else. Copper? My hand brushed against a wall. The leaves were wet, sticky, dark. I couldn't see in the gloom, but my heart dropped 20 feet into my stomach. My face was wet with tears. "I'm sorry," I whimpered. Somewhere on the other side of that wall, the grinding. A blue light. It grew louder as I closed my eyes and sobbed. "Please, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Darkness and light. The maze showed mercy. I awoke in a pile of dead leaves, about 10 feet outside of the outside hedge, 10 feet away from where I'd entered. The wall of the leaves were closed to me again. I looked around. A hint of lavender drifted by, and I let out a racking, ugly sob. Dragging myself to my feet, I carried my bruised, torn body to the guest house. I pushed the door open and dragged myself into the bedroom. I was greeted with a note on my bedroom door, wrinkled, blood-stained. I grabbed it off the door and went cold at the soft aroma of lavender. "Consider this your only warning," the note said. It was Sister's handwriting. The letter burned with her stubbornness, with her fierce personality and relentless optimism. "Never enter our maze again." There's a crack in the wall. It's only wide enough that the girl in the next room could send me notes, though we normally just whisper because I have nothing to write on or with. She was kidnapped about the same time I had. I remember when they brought her here. I had been sitting in my little room on the single piece of furniture in the room, a single twin mattress on the floor in the corner of the room. At the time, I hadn't noticed the crack in the wall, but one day I heard a strange noise. Figuring it was just me hearing things due to the lack of food, I ignored it, till a small piece of paper popped through the crack. The note simply said, "Come here." I laid on the floor to peek through the crack. All I could see was that the girl had the most beautifully haunting gray-blue eyes. Her name is Aurora. Most of the time, we whispered about how to get out, but we could never come up with anything since there was nothing in our rooms. We kept each other company. I learned so much about this girl, and her eye. I fell in love with her through the walls, but I couldn't tell her that. I wouldn't tell her that until we made it out of there. Looking around my room, I glanced up at the boarded window. I had already broke some of the wood off, only to reveal the window was barred. But by what I could see from the gap in the wood, we definitely weren't in the city anymore. How did this guy manage to kidnap 2 people, or more, without being suspect? How or why would somebody be so crafty to do something like this? My thoughts were disrupted when the bolts of the door began to unlock. I take a deep breath to calm my nerves and prepare myself. Nothing terrible has happened so far besides starvation and isolation. Arnold is what I call the man. He hates it for some reason. I cannot seem to figure this whole situation out. The metal door swung open, and a woman slipped in, shutting the door behind her. My face contorts with shock. She smiles a little. "And who are you?" I ask, collecting myself. There's never been anyone else here before. "Master thought you could use some real company," she says a bit seductively as she approaches me. This is strange," I think to myself. "Relax," she says as she places a hand on my chest, letting it descend slowly down my torso. I grab her arms forcibly and push her away. "What the fuck is going on?" I yell. She smiles again, giving me a seductive stare. "Why don't you think of me as Aurora? We all know you fancy her. You probably think of her at night. Think of all the things you want to do to her." She licks her lips. I'm disgusted and filling with anger. "Master won't like it if you turn me down," she pleaded with fake seductive sadness. "Well, your master can go fuck himself." As I said that, I saw her wrist flick, and too late, I noticed she jabbed me with the needle. Shock overtook my anger. "What the fuck did you just—" I felt myself getting tingly and numb as I crumbled to the floor. I turned my head before my neck went numb. I couldn't see through the crack in the wall. I closed my eyes and hoped Aurora wouldn't watch this. The woman pulled out a single-edged razor and had her fun with me. I lay there, feeling my body shake the numbness, only to be replaced by pain. I cry out as it all hits me at once. I can feel Aurora watching me now. Her concern can be felt through the walls, no words needed. Surely she can see the blood. Dizzy, I crawl to my mattress, trying to get the feeling of that woman off me. I'm startled awake by Aurora's screams. Jumping up was a mistake. Some of the gashes that bitch made tore open, but it didn't matter. Hearing Aurora's screams tore me apart more. I peeked through the crack, but all I could see was a man's boots. Arnold. I didn't want to think what she might be going through, hoping it wasn't like what I dealt with yesterday. Was it yesterday? Anger fueled me, and I ran over to the window, determined to somehow get out and save her. Breaking chunks of the wood off the window, light flooded into my room, causing pain in my eyes. I grabbed the bars with all my might. They just wouldn't bend. Suddenly, Aurora's screams stopped, and I heard heavy footsteps coming towards my door. I snatched a large piece of wood that was sharp on the end and waited as the bolts unlocked. There was the bastard. He chuckled as he looked at the splinters of wood everywhere. "What are you planning to do with that?" He looked at me with a cocky look on his face. "Did you not enjoy the gift I sent you? I thought it would be a nice thing to do. I mean, you're young and all. The whole time he had a twisted smile on his face. What did you do to her? I shouted. I wish I hadn't asked. He smirked and walked over to me, smacking the shank from my hands, forcing me to my knees. You want to taste her? He unzipped his pants, shoving his dick in my face. I turned my head, feeling my jaws clench. You're fucking sick! He laughs, slapping me hard enough I fall over. Leaning up on my elbows, he says, You know you're never getting out, and you'll learn to love hearing me fuck that cunt. He smirks and starts to walk towards the door. My body moves instinctively with all the rage that's constricting my heart. Ramming him into the door, the metal ringing through the room. Wrapping my arms around his neck in a choke, I push with all the strength I have, hoping it would be enough to knock him out. He elbowed me repeatedly. Don't you ever talk about her like that, you piece of shit! I bellow. How does it feel, Arnold? He gasps for air, but he swings back violently, smashing me against the wall. I felt the thick saliva build in my mouth as all the air escaped me. I dry-heaved for a moment. He charged me. I swiftly dodged him as he wasn't very graceful. Lightheaded, I ran for the door. I didn't make it very far. He managed to grab me and slam me against Aurora's door with such force, darkness blurred my vision. I crumbled to the floor, trying to get air into my lungs. Arnold picked me up by the collar, spitting as he screamed. Nice try, you little fucker. He didn't notice as I slid the shank from my pocket and lodged it straight into his neck. His gurgled screams echoed in the hall. Without hesitation, I snatched the keys off him and fumbled with them until I found the right one. Aurora's door came open. She was slumped by the door, crying. We stared at each other for a moment too long. Let's go, Aurora. I helped her up, and with my heart in my ears, we ran. Stumbling out into the daylight, Aurora let out a small scream and covered her eyes. Come on, we can't stop now, I say, grabbing her, wincing at the pain in my own eyes. We run through the woods in fear that woman would be after us. I could hear the rasps in our breathing as we ran. We stopped when we came across a road. Breathing so hard and my head getting dizzy, I sat with a thud. Aurora sat next to me. I glanced at her. Her ghostly pale skin glistening with sweat and blood. Her white blonde hair matted with dried blood. She was the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. Aurora lays back in the grass, too exhausted to continue. I lay down with her, wrapping my arms around her tightly as I can. Startled by her screams, I jump awake to see her having a breakdown. I walk up to her slowly and place my hands on her cheeks and kiss her deeply. I won't let anything bad happen to you again. From now on, I will be by your side till the end. I will protect you until I can no longer stand. I will protect you till I can no longer breathe, until my heart no longer functions. You are what kept me alive in there, and out here I will make you feel alive again. Aurora, I love you.